Good morning, First Unitarian Society of Madison and guests. Welcome. My name is Roger Birchhausen, and I am the interim minister here. I'm grateful to be joined today by the worship team of Reverend Wendy Williams, Reverend Kelly Crocker, Drew Collins, Linda Warren, Stephen Gregorius, and Daniel Carnes. Reverend Wendy Williams, our guest preacher today, is the senior minister of Jefferson Unitarian Church in Golden, Colorado, one of the flagship Unitarian Universalist churches in the country. I have immense respect for Wendy and for her ministry. A whole lot of our colleagues feel the same way as we elected her to be president of the UU Ministers Association. In this role, she is providing UU ministers in our movement visionary, skilled, and compassionate leadership in a difficult time. Wendy is no stranger to these parts. She grew up in Beaver Dam. She worked as a lawyer in Madison for many years, and her journey into Unitarian Universalism began right here in Madison at James Reeb UU congregation. It's also important to note that she is probably the most avid Packers fan I know. I warmly welcome my friend and colleague, Wendy, to our service today. The flowers in the auditorium are a reminder of the joyous celebration yesterday of the ordination of Reverend Karen Bringleson. Congratulations, Reverend Karen. In this time of physical distancing, we are creating space together virtually for worship and community. We invite you to keep the community building going after the service by joining our virtual coffee hour. In a moment, Reverend Kelly will light our chalice here, and I invite you to light something at your house, whether it be a candle or an app on a phone. I invite all of you now to enter into a time of centering silence, a time for a couple of deep breaths to come fully into this moment together. Make yourself comfortable wherever you are. Take a couple deep breaths with a deep breath on the inhale and a slow breath on the exhale. Deep breath in, slow breath out. Deep breath in, slow breath out. And now a moment of centering together. Our opening words today come from Reverend Sharon Wiley. You whose hearts are broken, come in. You whom pain has touched, and sorrow and shock. You who have cried this week and read the news with sadness, you whom loss has shadowed, you who grieve, come in, come in. You with hearts open to joy and hope, come in. You who love has touched in friendship and wonder, you who have laughed this week and felt gratitude for life's many blessings, you to whom gifts are given in abundance, you who rejoice, come in, come in. All our hearts are broken and open. All of us grieve and rejoice. This is our place and this is our hour to gather and sing and cry and laugh. Come in. Let us worship together. And I invite you to join in the chalice lighting words you'll see on your screen as we light our chalice here. We gather in this time of uncertainty, full of unknowns. We light this chalice to draw us together. With this flame, we cut through isolation and are warmed by the fires of connection. For this moment, this one moment, we find solid ground within the knowable bonds of love and community. And I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, Here We Are Gathered, number 389 in the gray hymnal. We'll do this once through and then twice as a round.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle
Good morning and welcome, and I'm so grateful to be with you. My name is Wendy Williams. I'm the senior minister at Jefferson Unitarian Church, but I am born and bred in Wisconsin, so my heart is often there, though I am not. It's really great to be with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a message with you. Before we get to the message, though, I want to tell you a children's story. This is a book written and illustrated by Brian Lees. I want to give him credit for the illustrations because they're fabulous. So here is The Rough Patch by Brian Lees. Evan and his dog did everything together. They played games and enjoyed sweet treats. They shared music and adventure. They were together all through the day and through the seasons. But what they loved most was working in Evan's magnificent garden. There, everything was planted big and as beautiful as the sky above them. But one day, the unthinkable happened. And Evan laid his dog to rest in the corner of the garden. And nothing was the same. Evan shut himself away inside. Without his best friend, the garden was a bitter and lonely place. One morning, he found himself with a hoe in his paws. Swinging angrily, he slashed the garden to the ground. He hacked it all to bits and threw everything into a heap. But a good place won't stay empty for long. New plants sprouted and stretched toward the sky. Weeds, itchy ones, spiky and prickly ones. These weeds suited Evan just fine, so he took care of them. If Evan's garden couldn't be a happy place, then it was going to be the saddest and most desolate spot he could make it. And soon, it was. When Evan found a pumpkin vine sneaking in under the fence, he raised his hoe to chop it. But then he considered the prickly stems, the fuzzy leaves, and the spidery, twisty tendrils, and he decided to leave it. As the pumpkin vine grew, Evan cleared the weeds from its path and watered it. The vine responded to his care. Around the time the evening air began to cool, Evan felt an old, familiar sense of excitement. It was Fair Week. He loaded up his pumpkin and drove to town. He took care of important business and gobbled down some delicious food. He caught up with some friends, too. It was good to be out again, even if it wasn't quite the same. Evan's pumpkin won 3rd place. Prize is $10 or one of the pups in the box, the judge said. I'll take the 10, said Evan. But as soon as he claimed his prize, he heard a scrabbling sound inside the box and thought it wouldn't hurt to just look. A good place won't stay empty for long. Something must grow. And so I wonder this morning, in this rough patch, what is growing in your heart and soul? in this time when things are not happening? What's growing in you instead?
When I breathe in, I will breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I will breathe out love. We're going to sing together our hymn number 1009, Meditation on Breathing. You may sing the chant part, which we will begin with. We'll sing it through 5 times. We'll begin and end with the chant, and the middle 3 times, I'll sing the melody. You may sing what you like.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe out. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in out. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, when I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Our readings today are both from A. Powell Davies, who was minister of All Souls Church Unitarian in Washington, D.C. from 1944 until his death in 1957. Religion is not something separate and apart from ordinary life. It is life. Life of every kind, viewed from the standpoint of meaning and purpose. Life lived in the fuller awareness of its human quality and spiritual significance. When sorrow comes, let us accept it simply as a part of life. Let the heart be open to pain. Let it be stretched by it. All the evidence we have says that this is the better way. An open heart never grows bitter, or if it does, it cannot remain so. In the desolate hour, there is an outcry, a clenching of the hands upon emptiness, a burning pain of bereavement, a weary ache of loss. But anguish, like ecstasy, is not forever. There comes a gentleness, a returning quietness, a restoring stillness. This, too, is a door to life. Here also is the deepening of meaning, and it can lead to dedication, a going forward to the triumph of the soul, the conquering of the wilderness. And in the process will come a deepening inward knowledge that in the final reckoning, all is well.
What a time this is. In our church, we've been apart for 22 weeks. First Unitarian Society is probably about the same. And for me, when our church closed that many weeks ago now, I was certain that by now we would have a sense of when we'd be coming back together to be in person. And after 22 weeks, we still don't know when we can safely reopen. This Corona coaster, as it's been called, is quite a ride. When someone asks, "How are you?" anymore, I now most often say, "Well, in this minute, I'm..." Like most of you, I can be flooded with all kinds of feelings: anger, sadness, stuckness, vulnerability, fear, and grief. And it's easy to wonder, is that okay? I mean, many people have it a lot worse than I do. Do I really get to feel this? Am I doing this right? And there are so many decisions to make all the time, and none of them are easy. There are so many ways in which this time is hard. And so maybe sitting there you are thinking, my kids' stuff has been canceled for months. School is virtual here only through October. How is this going to work? Or maybe you're thinking, I'm worried about my job, or I lost my job and I don't know how long or if unemployment will last. Or I'm working all of the time and suddenly now I'm deemed essential. I'm exhausted and stressed and I don't know how much longer I can go on. Or maybe you're thinking, I'm lonely. My body hurts because I can't hug my friends or my grandkids or my sibling or my parents. I'm angry that the curve has not been flattened and that even public health has been politicized and so many people are out of work or underemployed or broke or hungry. Or I'm sad. I miss people. I miss going out. I miss seeing whole faces, not just masks. However this is fraught for any of us, however this is fraught, on the whole, we are a civic-minded lot, and we want to do it right. We want our kids to be kids and not be permanently scarred from this whole thing. And when we are with the same people all of the time, have you noticed? Gives us a chance to come face to face with ourselves, our shadow, and our own judgment. Most often our judgment of ourselves. Did I do that right? Am I okay? Am I making the right decisions? You know, this isn't the only time this happens. Years ago now, I met a woman who loved dogs. And as a fellow dog lover, I asked her, well, what's your favorite kind of dog? And she answered very quickly, Samoyed, she said. And my mind immediately pictured that strong, furry, white northern breed. Well, when I asked her, why do you like Samoyeds? She said she'd never had one, but she's always been drawn to them for some reason. She said so much so that when I began dating the man that I ultimately married, we talked about dogs, and she said it has to be a Samoyed. And so early in their marriage, her husband came home excited one day, and he said, close your eyes. Close your eyes. I've got a big surprise for you. And she did so immediately. She was so swept into the kindness and romance of it all. Okay, he said, you can open your eyes. She looked at him and then towards the floor where he was looking. It's a beagle, she said. Yep, he said proudly. But you know I want a Samoyed. I do, he said. I know that. You've always said it. Okay, so why did you buy me a beagle? Absolutely unflappable, he said, listen, You know, Samoyeds are super smart, and beagles are really dumb. You can't ruin a beagle, but you can ruin a Samoyed. So why not make your mistakes on the beagle? So when we actually get a Samoyed, we're ready for it. You know, this story has stayed with me for so many, many, many years now. And I think it stays with me because it's so weird. It's a weird story, right? It is weird. I mean, when in life do we get a practice anything? A built-in mulligan, if you will. Not with children or jobs, spouses, or dogs. The truth is, we are called to bring our attention and intention to whatever we are doing, knowing that we won't do it perfectly. Because perfection is not the standard. Humanity is. Vulnerability is. Presence is. I've seen more than a few Facebook posts saying, I didn't sign up for this. Well, no. None of us did, and yet here we are. And as author Glennon Doyle confirmed, we are in collective grief. We are in collective grief. So, said she, quote, resist the hustle and self-improvement messages. Grief is a cocoon from which we will all emerge new. And it takes all we've got. So go easy. No shoulds, no shame, just relentless tenderness. I love that. I love that. No shoulds, no shame, just relentless tenderness. You see, grief is a natural response to encountering the seismic shifts of trauma. And we may want to do it perfectly, but trauma has no roadmap. There is just being in it and being real about it. This, as you know, is not the world's first traumatic experience. It probably isn't the first traumatic experience for you. And we each respond differently given our backgrounds and our constitutions. We need to remember that our trauma, though, whatever level we are experiencing, will not end when the news changes. You see, epigenetics teaches us that our bodies retain and pass along trauma, but also healing. So we must be conscious of how we live. As Richard Rohr put it, pain that is not transformed is transmitted. And now science gives the data to prove it. You see, it turns out that the decisions we make are only a part of what determines traumatic impact. It matters how we live. Take, for example, the British kids in World War II. You know, many British parents, many London parents evacuated their children from London and the surrounding area to protect them from the bombs and the terror. And yet protecting them physically was only the part of the task of reducing the trauma. You see, while the parents who sent their kids into the countryside meant well, the experience wasn't often very helpful. You see, the students were assembled at their schools, each with a suitcase and a gas mask. They were counted, and then they were transported away. They had no idea where they were going, how long they'd be away, or when they'd see their parents again. It really was such a setup. The rural households, for their part, thought that they were doing a good deed, that they would be receiving these cheerful, rosy-cheeked children, grateful for a rural holiday. But the children that arrived were often ill, ragged, and fearful. The younger children were afraid because they did not know what was going on. And the older children were afraid because they did. It was too often an unhelpful match. And yet, when host families provided consistent loving care, made space for the fear and the worry, spoke some about the war to these kids, and fostered connection between the children and their parents and the world they had known, the children were less traumatized. Leaning into this pandemic time, then, we see that we need to recognize that the virus can harm us physically. And the fear and the trauma surrounding such things can still impact our bodies even after the violence or the virus passes. We know this. We actually say as much after a traumatic time. You've heard it. You've probably said it. I'm not the same person. I've been changed. I'm just not the same person that I was. Neuroscientist Bonnie Badenach, the author of The Heart of Trauma, invites us to cultivate in these times disconfirming experiences. Now, it's a strange term, but what it means is things that don't confirm or re-traumatize. Confirm or re-traumatize. These are the experiences that we have when there's deep reciprocal attunement with others that help you feel viscerally safe. This is what those English country parents did who made space for the entirety of the children that arrived. The sickness and the worry and the fear and the child. These moments of attunement and co-regulation, if you will, register the same in the autonomic nervous system, and they help us overcome fear and helplessness. But creating these experiences takes effort. It's not just talking, though. It's the spacious connection with deep and reciprocal listening. It's moving together. It's looking deeply into each other's eyes. It's allowing for what you are feeling and what the other person is feeling too. You see, we are being confronted by our own life's fragility and our own mortality. And this is big stuff. And it puts us at the precipice of deciding how it is we will live. There's a Christian minister by the name of Cameron Trimble who wrote recently in her blog words that really spoke to me. She said, quote, "We now stand at an evolutionary tipping point, and we must remember that we are not disappearing, we are becoming." And so that's why we gather, to remind ourselves that life is a great place to grow a soul, as A. Paul Davies said. We are becoming together. Now, it's true. Our politics and our media are racing to the bottom of the brainstem. And by their work, it seems we are being encouraged to view life only through a lens of fear, and then to live from that reptilian portion of our brains. This is what is before us. And as always, our gatherings remind us that whatever is in front of us, we have a choice of how we will live. And we, as Unitarian Universalists, are a people who make hard choices. So what hard choices will we make? You see, our religion is not about pie in the sky when you die. It is about being grounded in the reality of what is, and yet holding something bigger. Spiritual teacher Ram Dass spun it this way. He said, quote, "We must remember our social security number and our Buddha nature." Really, in his own way, that's what A. Powell Davies was naming in our reading this morning, in the language of our faith tradition. He said, quote, "Religion is not something separable and apart from ordinary life. It is life. Life of every kind viewed from the standpoint of meaning and purpose. Life lived in the fuller awareness of its human quality and its spiritual significance." This is what it means to be human. We are the beings that know that we are born and know we will have to die, and so we live trying to make meaning of it, to see what is and to see it from a broader perspective. It takes attention and intention. It takes connection, courage, and commitment. Now, all of that is hard enough in the run-of-the-mill, ordinary days of our lives. But this is a particularly rough patch. And of that, Davies says to us, when sorrow comes, let us accept it simply as part of life. Let the heart be open to pain. Let it be stretched by it. And to that I say, go on with you now, Powell. You let your heart be open if you think it's all that. I am not staying open. It hurts too much. I'm going to fold in on myself. If I can't go back to the womb, I can at least return to the position where I was safe and protected and couldn't feel all this mess. We know that path, right? That's what the fellow in the Story for All Ages did, right? Evan and his dog did everything together through the days and the seasons, and then one day the unthinkable happened, and Evan shut down. He shut himself away, and one day he finally had a little bit of energy, and so he went to the place where they had the most fun, and he hacked it to bits. What says the author, the narrator of the story? A good place won't stay empty for long. Something will fill it in. And in the story, you'll remember it was weeds. Lots of weeds. And Evan said, great, fantastic. Let this be the most desolate, ugly place. There is no joy in me. Let there be no joy in what I see. And we know that place too, right? It's a rough patch. And yet there's our tradition, and A. Powell Davies to remind us, let the heart be stretched open by pain. It is hard. Our default seems to be to return to our animal brain, our reactivity, our flight, our fight, or our freezing. We squelch the beauty we had created and found and feed the weed bed of our despair. We close down, or we lash out, or we leave. And sometimes we do all of it. But there is a part of us, there is a part in us that knows a better way. And wise spirits across the centuries have told us as much. Hildegard of Bingen, that 12th century preacher, theologian, writer, composer, scientist, and doctor, said that each of us is like a precious field. It is ours to root out the weeds and recover our greening power. Our power to come to life again. Our power to live generatively. In the next century, Meister Eckhart said, there is something of God in each of us. It is the seedbed of the soul. It is our true seed, the one of bloom and beauty and life and possibility. And so our job, at least as author Sue Monk Kidd put it, is to cultivate our own divine depths. Even and perhaps especially when we are in the rough patches. You see, it was Thich Nhat Hanh who brought the Buddha's wisdom to this century. And he put it like this. He said, quote, your mind is like a piece of earth planted with many, many different kinds of seeds. Within you, there are seeds of joy and peace and mindfulness and understanding and love. There are also seeds of fear, hate, craving, anger, and forgetfulness. The healthy and the unhealthy seeds are always there, sleeping in the soil of your mind and your heart. And the quality of your life he said, depends upon the seeds that you water. And so, my friends, there is no denying this is a rough patch. And for some of us, much rougher than others. Like Evan, we too can shut down or withdraw or get angry, withering, and ignoring whatever is beautiful. But a good place won't stay empty for long. Something is going to grow. Something must grow. So let us keep tilling the ground, making room for our true seed, even in the midst of this rough patch. Let us transmit healing by paying attention to one another and making room for what is rather than pretending what we wish were there. Let us pay attention to the seeds that we water. Because if we listen, I think we can hear our true seed calling. May it be so. Amen.
I now invite you into the giving and receiving of today's offering. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we each have to offer this world. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space, in community which inspires and challenges us. We give with the faith that together we have enough. You will see on your screen that you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together. Thank you, Linda. We are As always, grateful for the music that you give. We gather each week people with sorrows and celebrations etched into our hearts. We gather to share the burdens so that our pain can be lessened and our joys can be shared. Today, many of us are celebrating the ordination of the Reverend Karin Bringleson, which happened here this evening. We light this candle of gratitude for that beautiful affirmation of Karin's ministry with us and our hopes for her future. This week, we also hold in our hearts the people of Lebanon as they deal with their grief, anger, and frustration, their pain, their longing for answers. We call to our minds the victims and their families, and we pray for strength and healing so they may face this crisis and what may come. If you'll join me in a spirit of meditation with these words from Richard Gilbert. Be gentle with one another. It is a cry from the lives of people battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there? Of hope and hurt, or promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care, for there are human beings within. Human beings as vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring. It is lasting enough to share. And it is precious enough for love. Be gentle then with one another. Amen. And I invite you now into our closing hymn, which is number 1040, Hush.
I invite you to rise and sing with me. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like a freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Oh, sounds like a justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do?
Friends, in this rough patch, this time of fragility and trauma, may we find within ourselves courage. May we find within ourselves relentless tenderness. May our hearts stay open. And Kelly will now extinguish our chalice. May you go in peace.
Thank you.